Welcome to the 1,000 Nights and 1 Night. Now, when it was the 181st night, she said, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that the Ifrit Doshna and the Ifrita Maymunya stinted not bearing Princess Budyar till they descended and laid her on the couch beside Kamar al-Zaman. Then they uncovered both their faces, and they were the likest of all folk each to the other, as they were twins or an only brother or sister. And indeed they were a seduction to the pious, even as saith of them poet al-Mubin. O heart, be not thy love confined to one, lest thou be doting or disdain be undone. Love all the fair, and thou shalt find with them, if thou be lost, to thee that thou shalt be won. And quoth another, Mine eyes beheld two lying on the ground, both had I loved, if on these eyne they lay. O Danash and Maymunya gazed on them a while, and he said, By Allah, O my lady, it is good. My mistress is assuredly the fair. She replied, Not so. My beloved is the fair. Woe to thee, O Danash! Art blind of eye and heart, that lean from fat thou canst not depart? Wilt thou hide the truth? Dost thou not see his beauty and loveliness and fine stature and symmetry? Out on thee! Hear what I propose to say in praise of my beloved, and if thou be a lover true to her, thou dost love to do the like for her thou lovest. Then she kissed Kamar al-Zaman again, and again between the eyes, and improvised this ode. How is this? Why should the blamer abuse thee in this pride? What shall console my heart for thee that art but slender bough? A nature cold eye, thou hast that witched far and wide, from pure platonic love of its deliverance noun, I trow. Those glances fell as plundering Turk to heart have havoc deal, as never havoc scimitar made keenest at that curve. O me, thou layest load of love the heaviest, while I feel so feeble grown that under the weight of Shemashite I swerve. My love for thee, as wottest well, is habit, and my low is nature to all others' faults is all the love I tender. Now, were my heart but like to thine, I never would say no. Only my wasted form is like thy waist, so gracious slender. Out on him who is beauty's robe for moon-like charms hath fame, and who is claimed by mouth of men as marvel of his tribe. Of man what manner may he, ask they who flight and blame, for whom thy heart is so distressed? I only cry, Describe! On stone intempered heart of him, learn of his yielding grace and bending form to show me grace and yielding to consent. O my prince beautiful, thou hast an overseer in place, who irketh me, and eke a groom whose wrong doth ne'er relent. Indeed, he lieth who said that of all loveliness was pent in Joseph. In thy charms there's many and many a Joe. And Jenny, dread me when I stand and face to face address, but meeting thee by fluttering heart, its shame and terror show. I took aversion semblance, and I turned from thee in fright, but more aversion I assume, more love for me dost claim. That hair of jetty black, that brow ere raying radiant light, those eyne wherein white jostles black, that dearling dainty frame. When Donish heard the posy which Maymunya spake of praise of her beloved, he joyed with exceeding joy, and marvelled with exceeding wonderment. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased to say her permitted say. Now, when it was the 182nd night, she said, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that when the Ifrit Danish heard the posy which Maymunya spake in praise of her beloved, he shook for exceeding joy, and he said, Thou hast separated and celebrated thy beloved in song, and thou hast indeed done well in praise of him whom thou lovest. And there is no help for it but that I, also in my turn do my best to infame my mistress and recite somewhat in her honor. Then the Ifrit went up to the Lady Budur, and kissing her between the eyes, looked at Maymunah and at his beloved princess, and recited the following verses, albeit he had no skill in poesy. Love for my fair, they chide in angry way, unjust for ignorance. Ah, lavish favors on the love-mad, whom taste of thy wrath and parting woe shall slay. In sooth, for love, I'm wet with railing tears, that rail mine eyelids' blood, thou mayest say. No marvel what I bear for love, 'tis marvel that any know of me thou art away. Unlawful, where our union did I doubt, thy love, or heart inclined to other may. And eke these words, I feed eyes on their stead by the valley's side, and I'm slain, and my slayer aside hath hied. Grief wine have I drunken, and down my cheek danced tears to the songs of the camel guide. For union blessing I strive, though sure in Budur and Sud all my bliss shall bide. Wot I not which of three gave me most to plain, so hear them numbered ere thou decide. Those sworders, her eyne, that lancer, her figure, or ring-mailed locks which her forehead hide. Quoth she, and I ask of her what so whites, or bides in towns or in desert rides. To me, in thy heart I dwell, look there. Quoth I, where's my heart? Ah, where? When Munya heard these words from the Ifrit, she said, Thou hast done well, O Danish. But say thou which of the two is handsomer? And he answered, My mistress Budur is handsomer than thy beloved. Cried Maymunah, Thou liest, O accursed. Nay, my beloved is more fair than yours. But Danish persisted, Mine is the fair. And they ceased not to wrangle and challenge each other's words, till Maymunah cried out at Danish, and would have laid violent hands on him, but he humbled himself to her, and softening his speech said, Let not the truth be a grief to thee, and cease we this talk, as all is to testify in favor of our lovers. Rather let each of us withdraw the claim, and seek we one who shall judge fairly between us, which of the two be fair, and by his sentence we will abide. I agree to this, answered she, and smote the earth with her foot, whereupon there came out of it an Ifrit blind of an eye, humpbacked and scurvy-skinned with eye orbits, slid up and down on his face, and on his head were 7 horns, and 4 locks of hair fell to his heel. His hands were pitchfork-like, and his legs mast-like, and he had nails as the claws of a lion, and feet as the hoofs of a wild ass. When the Ifrit rose out of the earth and sighted Maymunah, he kissed the ground before her, and standing with his feet on the ground, What is it that thou wilt have of me, mistress, O daughter of the king? She replied, O Koshkosh, I would have thee judge between me and this accursed Danish. And she made known to him the matter from first to last, whereupon the Ifrit Koshkosh looked at her face of the youth, and then looked at the face of the girl, and saw them lying asleep, embraced each with an arm under the other's neck, alike in beauty and loveliness, and equal in grace and goodliness. The Mayrid gazed long upon them, marveling at their seemlihead, and after carefully observing the twain, he turned to Maymunah and Danish, and repeated these couplets. Go visit her thou lovest, and regard not the words detractors utter. Envious churls can never favour love. O sure the merciful ne'er made a thing more fair to look upon than 2 fond lovers in each other's arms, speaking their passion in a mute embrace. When heart has turned to heart, the fools would part them, strike idly on cold steel. So when thou hast found one purely, wholly thine, accept her true heart, and live for her alone. O thou that blamest the love-struck for their love, give o'er thy talk. How canst thou minister to a mind diseased? Then he turned again to Maymunah and Donish, and said to them, By Allah, if you will have the truth, I tell you fairly, the twain be equal in beauty and loveliness, and perfect grace and goodliness. Nor can I make any difference between them on account of their being man and woman. But I have another thought, which is that we wake each of them in turn without the knowledge of the other. And whichever is the more enamored shall be held inferior in seemlihead and comeliness. Quoth Maymunah, Right is thy recking. And quoth Donish, I consent to this. Then Donish changed himself in the form of a flea and bit Kamar al-Zaman, whereupon he started from sleep in a fright. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day and ceased to say her permitted say. Now, when it was the 183rd night, Donish had changed himself into the form of a flea, and bit Kamar al-Zaman, who started from sleep in a fright, and rubbed the bitten part, his neck, and scratched it hard because of the smart. Then turning sideways, he found lying by him something whose breath was sweeter than musk, and whose skin was softer than cream. Hereat marveled he with great marvel, and he sat up and looked at what lay beside him, when he saw it to be a young lady with a union pearl, or a shining sun, or a dome seen from afar on the well-built wall, for she was 5 feet tall, with a shape like the letter, bosomed high, and rosy-cheeked, even as saith of her poet, 4 things which ne'er conjoin unless it be to storm my vitals and to shed my blood. Brow white as day and tresses black as night, cheeks rosy red, and lips with smiles o'erflood. And also quoth another, A moon she rises, willow wand she waves, breeze ambergris, and gazes a gazelle. Meseems that sorrow woes my heart and wins, and when she wenteth haste therein to dwell. And when Kamar al-Zaman saw the Lady Budar, daughter of King Gaya, and her beauty and comeliness, she was sleeping clad in a shift of Venetian silk, without her petticoat trousers, and wore on her head a kerchief embroidered with gold, and set with stones of price. Her ears were hung with twin earrings which shone like constellations, and round her neck was a collar of union pearls of size unique, past the competence of any king. When he saw this, his reason was confounded, and natural heat began to stir in him. Allah awoke in him the desire, and he said to himself, Allah awoke in him, Whatso Allah willeth, that shall be, and what he willeth not shall never be. So saying, he put out his hands, and turning her over, loosed the collar of her chemise, and looked at her with hot desire. He would have awakened her, but she would not awake, for Donish had made her sleep heavy. So he shook her, and moved her, saying, O my beloved, awake not. Awake, awake, but she didn't awake, neither moved her head, whereupon he considered her case for a long hour, and said to himself, If I guess aright, this is the damsel my father would have married me to those 3 years past, and I have refused her. But inshallah, God willing, as soon as it is done, I will say to him, Marry me to her, that I may enjoy her. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased to say her permitted say. Now, when it was the 184th night, she said, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that Kamar al-Zaman said to himself, By Allah, when I see dawn, I say to my sire, Marry me to her, that I may enjoy her, nor will I let half the day pass ere I possess her and take my fill of her beauty and loveliness. Then he bent over to Budur, whereat the Jinnah Maymunyan trembled and was abashed, and Danish the Ifrit was like to fly for joy. But as Kamar al-Zaman was about to kiss her upon the mouth, he was ashamed before Allah and turned away his head and averted his face, saying to his heart, "Have patience." Then he took thought a while and said, "I will be patient. Happily my father, when he was wroth with me and sent me to this jail, may have brought my young lady and made her lie by my side to try me with her, and may have charged her not to be readily awakened when I would arouse her. Or like my sire standeth hidden in some stead whence, being himself unseen, he can see all I do with this young lady. And tomorrow he will scold me and cry, How cometh it thou sayest, I have no mind to marry, and yet thou didst kiss and embrace yonder damsel? So I will withhold myself, lest I be ashamed before my sire. And the right and proper thing to do is not to touch her at this present, nor even to look upon her, except to take from her somewhat which shall serve as a token to me, and a memorial of her, that some sign endured between her and me." Then Kamar al-Zaman raised the young lady's hand and took from her a little finger, a seal ring worth an immense amount of money, for that it bezels with a precious jewel, and around it were engraven these couplets: "Count not that I your promises forgot, despite the length of your delinquencies, by generous, O my lord, to me inclining, haply your mouth and cheeks these lips may kiss. By Allah, ne'er will I relinquish you, albeit you will transgress lovers' boundaries." Then Kamar al-Zaman took the seal ring from the little finger of Queen Budur and set it on his own, then turning his back to her, went to sleep. When Maymunah the Jinnah saw this, she was glad and said to Danish and Kashkash, "Say ye how my beloved Kamar al-Zaman bore himself chastely towards this young lady? Verily, this was of the perfection of his good gifts. For observe you twain how he looked on her, and noted her beauty and loveliness, and yet embraced her not, neither kissed her, nor put his hand to her, but turned his back and slept," answered they. "Even so." Thereupon Maymunah changed herself into a flea, and entered into the raiment of Budur, the love of Danish, and crept up her calf, and came upon her thigh, and reaching a place some 4 carats below her navel, bit her. Thereupon she opened her eyes, and sitting up in bed, saw a youth lying beside her and breathing heavily in his sleep, the loveliest of Almighty Allah's creatures, with eyes that put to shame the fairest orist of heaven, and a mouth like Solomon's seal, whose water was sweeter to the taste and more efficacious than a therac, and lips the color of coral stone, and cheeks like the blood-red anemone, even as saith one describing him in these couplets: "My mind's withdrawn from Zainab and Nawar, by rosy cheeks that growth of myrtle bear. I love a fawn, a tunic-vested boy, and leave the love of bracelet-wearing fair. My maiden hall enclosed is unlike her that I play with, as at home we pair. O thou who blamest my flight from Hind and Zanab, the cause is clear as dawn, an uplighting air. Wouldst have me fair, a slave, the thrall of thrall, cribbed, pent, confined behind the bar and wall." Now, when Princess Budur saw him, she was seized by a transport of passion and yearning and love-longing, and Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased her permitted say. And so do I cease my tale for this day, till it be morrow.